Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Partnership Guys podcast. We are on season 2, episode 19. Today, we're going to be talking about repairing trust when it's cracked or broken. We're just really happy that we're getting so many people reaching out, listening to us on Spotify, watching us on YouTube, listening on Apple Podcast, and we just have a lot of fun talking to people, and we think we're doing some important work helping partnerships getting to the win, whether it's building it, fixing it, exiting it, ending it. So reach out. Any questions, anything you'd like to hear more about, we are here. So again, today is we're talking about repairing trust when it's cracked or broken. It's not easy. Trust it takes years. I know for me, I have worked with a lot of, longtime friends. And that was when I was starting in my early 20s. Some really close college friends and I, started our trading floor together. And we started with a very high level of trust, and wasn't perfect, but, kind of everything followed that key point that we really, really had a lot of faith and trust in each other. And we only wanted to see each other do well, our business, of course, do well, but we each had different things that we wanted in life, and we wanted to support that to the nth degree. So, welcome, Stephen Schneider, Todd Leonardis. Thanks so much for talking about this. I know for you two, it's just been decades of just an amazing partnership, and so I'd love to hear. I don't even know if we've talked about this. How when you guys first started, there's this certain level of trust, and it takes time to build, grow that. Like, what was the evolution of what we see today, over decades of how you guys have come to the point to just have such a high level of trust?
And I talk about when we speak to people in our keynote and things like that, that when you first start working with somebody, you want to assume trust. It's like on a first date, right? You don't go into the date assuming that you can't trust this person because it's going to be really hard to build trust. You assume that you can trust them until they start to break that trust. And so, Todd and I, same kind of thing. When we first started working together, we just assumed that we were both there to build trust in the relationship and in the partnership so that we could actually work together. It is definitely, once trust is established and then broken, really hard to get trust back.
It can be done, though. Can be done.
Can be done for sure.
For sure.
Right? Todd and I have been really diligent over the years about not doing things to damage trust. Like, we don't, if we make a commitment to something, we don't break that commitment. That's a big way to start, killing trust. And losing that trust takes time. It happens over time. And things like broken commitments, things like poor communication, things like meetings after the meetings and hidden agendas are things that can definitely start to destroy trust in a partnership. And it's a million little things that add up over time. It's never one big thing, but one day you just wake up and, you just can't trust that person anymore.
Yeah, it trust. And I've found it in previous partnerships and that trust rarely breaks like in a single moment. It's typically has been leaking over time, and that's just the final straw. You don't really realize it per se because it can be very gradual, because it could take years to build up trust with somebody who you're don't have an intimate relationship with. But it just takes a few different moments to destroy that and to bring it back. And that happened to me in previous partnership. All of those things that Stephen, you were just talking about, the broken commitments, the poor or no communication, definitely some hidden agendas. It's so disappointing. And that's why when Stephen, you and I partnered, we knew that this was something that isn't just like, we're going into this with trust and then we're not building on it. We work and build on it daily. And as we do with you now, Rob. And for the most part for us, it's just honest, open, vulnerable communication. That's really kind of where you do that, and doing what you say you're going to do. So it's really important just to have, integrity. If you have integrity as a person, you can build trust pretty easily. If you do what you say you're going to do, and you say what you're going to do, is really a good way to kind of build build that trust. Because I mean, when there's broken trust, everything just starts to quagmire. Decisions start to slow down. Everyone starts second guessing each other. Communication becomes very guarded. It's probably a good term.
I mean, Todd, we're seeing all of that in a partnership that we're in the process of exiting because there was not trust. We went in assuming trust, but we never really worked on it and never built it the way we should have. And like you said, all that stuff, all there's costs to that, right?
Yeah.
Is we never were able to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish in that business. And even though we're still friends with the people that we partnered up with, that partnership or that lack of trust in that partnership is kind of destroying that business, and it's a shame.
Yeah.
We're very
and that's a
guarded with
funny.
our
That's a great right. That's a great call out because I do trust the people. I just don't trust them in their positions, and and so it's crazy to navigate, but I think we're doing a good job. And like I said, when trust disappears, everything becomes harder, and
everything feels personal.
everything feels
Exactly.
personal.
No, exactly. And for me, even the friendships I had, we had to work on it. Yeah, the three of us work on it. The three of us sit and we go through everything and talk about everything, and it's important. It's important to get it out there and to talk about it and be open with it and get back to that level up, trust, and we're still in this together because we always talk about it's running a business. So it's going to be like that. There's going to be the down times where, somebody makes, a decision that didn't work out, and you can step over that trust line very quickly, and things can happen that, people get frustrated, and I've gotten frustrated before. And, you just have to be mindful of that line to cross that is not personal, is not affecting, the relationship and the business partnership. And I've just had so many great partnerships that haven't crossed that line. That we're playing on a field that the trust is there, so that the conversations can be very open, honest, and then bringing it back to the level of trust and respect that we want it to be, which is very high. And
Talk all the time about the solar business, and you never trusted your neighbor in that business, even though you had a successful business. You were making money.
Yep.
But because you didn't trust your partner, the business dissolved. You lost the business. Ended up 10 years in a lawsuit. I mean, you've told the story a million times.
Yeah,
But that's all based on a lack of trust and not doing the work
we
to
were
try to
making
rebuild it.
money and doing well is what led to a real distrust of what we're doing with it. And my neighbor had a certain vision of how the funds should be handled, and I had a much more, to me, equitable vision of how the funds should be handled. And it became very personal in that my work is much more valuable than the work you're doing. And so I'm entitled to more here and more reward here. And it was almost like the success, it just showed it that much that we did not trust each other. And that's what was at the forefront was, every time we talked. And then we would try to reset it, which I've done my whole life with people, is kind of reset of whatever that is, you guys go out to lunch and we go out to lunch now. And, that's a way to do it. Or when I was trading, I talk about going out for dinner or drinks or to a game or something like that to kind of reset it. My neighbor and I never had anything like that because we didn't like each other. And we just wanted to get away from each other. And so,
I mean, I don't know your neighbor, but it also almost sounds like he wasn't interested in rebuilding the trust, right? And that's, if you both partners are not willing to work on it, that's not ever going to rebuild trust between the partners.
absolutely. And then it just made me just not be a trustworthy person to him too. I matched it, in a negative way, for sure.
I mean, there's a list of things, and I'm sure we'll talk about them that you can do to rebuild trust, but there's a bunch of things that just do not rebuild trust, right? Because it's not really built by words; it's built by behavior and action.
Other than words.
So it totally. I mean, like anything, giving people lip service doesn't help anybody. Giving empty apologies, being defensive, not owning it. So explaining away your mistakes, blaming others, but sometimes people they'll say that I'm sorry, and they just think trust returns. It doesn't. You have to work at it, and you have to show it through actions. It's harder to rebuild trust than it is to build trust, but it can be done. An apology starts the process, but being consistent and showing up is really what finishes it and rebuilds it.
One of the red flags for me with my neighbor was when we would argue and there was no trust there, it would kind of come to a conclusion of, maybe let's just agree to disagree and let's just move on. And it was never really resolved. And the real red flag to me was there was no nice period. There was no period in between where the trust was like too high or, it was just like, no, it doesn't have to be like that. There was none of that. It was just like the next conversation just showed there was still no trust there. It was the last conversation went nowhere. And so when you're having those conversations, I know we have them with so many people where we're just making sure when we leave that conversation that we reset the level of trust to the high level we want it to be.
Sometimes rebuilding that trust is, even if you are having an argument and you don't trust each other, is at the end of that conversation is just acknowledge the person on a personal level. Are you okay with what we talked about? Is there something else I could have said or done? Right? Things like that is what starts to rebuild trust. Like it's not about just saying, like Todd was saying, empty apologies and things like that and explaining away. It's about acknowledging the problem. It's about being honest with what you're doing, being vulnerable. And we've talked about that before. This is where vulnerability
and hearing people, you know what I mean? Like listening to what they're saying and asking them, we've done it and be like, what are you saying that I'm not hearing, type of thing. And that's a good way to kind of keep that conversation going and make sure that you've emptied the well and can move forward from there.
Yeah, when I had my trading floor, again, it's a lot of, we were in our mid-20s and as friends from college, we were very close and, we're friends from college. We were close in a certain way, for the most part, socially. We always started different businesses when we were in college together. But this, starting a trading floor, it was a real business. We were bringing in traders and we did have different roles. So I was out on the floor training traders, trading myself. And there were, as an example, a really good friend of mine was in a back office training on the beginner level. So when people came, they would come to him for 5 days and kind of train basics and then sent to me. And we definitely had to work within that training program because I would get frustrated sometimes when people come to me and I didn't feel like they were ready. And then he would get frustrated with me, and we would have those conversations about how do we make this better. And it was such a high level of trust. It never crossed any kind of line. It was just, how do we make this better? And next thing we knew, we were out and we were like, we have 280 traders now, and they were all trained in a much better way than what we originally trained. And we did that together because our trust for each other and what we were doing and our motivations were in sync 100%. And that's why for you two.
I'll bet you if you look back, there was rarely, if ever, a situation where something went wrong and somebody said, it's not my fault, it's his fault. Right?
Yeah.
I bet you everybody took ownership.
Gotta own it.
Whatever it is they did.
Too much. If somebody listened, it would almost be nauseating of, it's my fault. No, it's my fault. No, it's my fault. And then quickly, it's like, let's just figure this out together. Let's not worry about whose fault it is. Let's figure this out together. And that's the beauty of it. And it's the beauty of a partnership. It's the beauty of having people that, you really can be vulnerable with and say what you're feeling and say what you're going through. And it just would have been so much different if I just sat there and just let my frustration fester. And, all of a sudden I'm trading traders and I get frustrated and I start taking it out on the traders. And there was none of that. We knew that we wanted to, keep a high level of energy on the floor and positivity. And so, really traders did not see any of that negativity, as opposed to with my neighbor, everybody saw the negativity. Quickly, everybody saw that we were pulling up in separate cars and we were standing like far away from each other. Mm. And then, they would look at one of us and everybody saw that because I didn't want to stand near him and he didn't want to stand near me. Mm. And that wasn't, as the business was doomed, immediately because of that.
I mean, and we touch base, Stephen, you did about, how you actually rebuild trust. And listen, you got to be patient because it just takes time to rebuild trust. It rebuilds slowly. You have to be more purposeful with it. we were talking about acknowledging the issue and the person on a personal level. Take ownership, like we said, right? Don't make excuses. And like I was touching on before, like just follow through with your commitments. Do what you say you're going to do, right? And if you can't do it, be open about it, and then try to work with your partner to find a way. And the way you do that, and Rob, you witnessed some of this yesterday with one of our other businesses, is just transparency. Just be completely transparent. As soon as you start noticing that you're not sharing or giving, or I'd hate to say hiding information, but that's a red flag. You should really look at that. That means that there's some cracks in the trust that need to be addressed, and you got to figure out why.
Todd, we've had situations over the years. I mean, I can speak for myself where I didn't feel as trusted in the partnership. And so when I did something that maybe didn't go as I thought it would, or made a mistake or whatever, I would be reluctant sometimes to bring it up until I realized that that's me not coming to the relationship wanting to be trusted. And so, rebuilding that trust, and we never really got to a situation where trust was a major problem.
Fortunately, yeah.
But there certainly have been moments, there's up and downs with
ebbs and flows. Absolutely. Ebbs and flows.
That, just that transparency, like just owning the problem, right? I mean, that's one of our core values at Kramer, is just own it. If you own it, we can fix the problem together, right?
Yeah.
And that working together is what builds trust. And, unlike like if you have a friend that, pisses you off or does something to hurt your trust, you could just not be friends with that person. If you're business partners, you don't have that choice. Like, this is really important because you really have to make sure that you work on this, because things are going to go bad. And, when things are going great, you're not thinking about the trust. It's not the trust is just there. Things are going great. But as soon as things get challenging, and Rob, from your neighbor, is the fact that you guys didn't trust each other became a big thing right from the get-go. Right. And then ultimately it killed the business.
Yeah. And we're seeing it with so many other people too, that, trust takes years to build. It takes a long time, but just a single moment can do enough damage to unwind all that trust built up over years. So we hear from so many people that whether it was something said or something done that to them just crossed a line, that one moment is bigger than all the years of having that high level of trust. So, really important conversation, important to keep having it. To understand that you have to be open with your feelings and not let that trust fester, or lack of trust fester. And so really, really important conversation, and glad we're having it, and glad we're having it with so many people. Thanks everybody for listening. Again, this was episode 19. We're here. We're going to keep doing. We're going to have some more a different approach to what we're doing here coming soon. So we're really excited about where we're going with this in so many ways. Keep listening to us on Spotify, watching us on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and keep reaching out. We really are, helping people get to the win, whether it's build it. In some of those cases, when the trust is gone, it's time to exit it, end it. But, for the most part, when it's just cracked a little bit, the trust, we are able to help people build it. So thank you again, everybody. Thank you, Todd and Stephen. This was a great talk. And we will see everybody soon.
Take it easy.
Bye, everybody.